Blind Tiger, The Legend of Beltree Smith. Learn more right after this.
Packers. Viking. Packers. Viking. Viking.
Red state. Blue state. Vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg,
Doug,
how you doing?
just fine, brother. You said?
I'm all right. All right, so this is a show that's really in your area because you're big on movies and documentaries especially.
True, but it's also I guess the second part of a first show we did before, where we talked about this product, and I guess, it's come to fruition.
It does seem to me like, because you will fairly frequently tell me about something you've watched on one of those 800 channels you have.
Well, I like documentaries.
Which I can't see because I don't get the channel.
Well, I love documentaries because in a good documentary, the people behind it have done a lot of research and they've done a lot of studies, and so you in the hour, 2 hours, you get a lot of information that is the work of hours and days and years of research, and so it's just so fascinating to me. So,
Well, today we're talking about a finished product, a documentary about a local legend, and our guest is Seth Ingram. He's one of the key folks that created the documentary. So we'll get to talk to him about that whole process.
The whole process, which I want to know more about because I'm fascinated about the whole documentary process. We might need to make one day.
I don't know. Just based on the little I already know, I mean, it's hard work, and you have to really want to finish it.
No, so you're saying we can't? Okay.
I don't know. Usually, our projects are you say we need to do this. Let me know when it's done.
That works.
Well, we'll be back in a minute with our guest and talk about the documentary Blind Tiger. So stay with us.
If you're looking for a new pet that your family will cherish every day, consider adopting from a shelter. Shelters are the best places to find a new pet. That's where you'll discover healthy, loyal, and loving animals, eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet, so bring home your new buddy today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
Doesn't come up often. Welcome back to Community Watch. We're very happy to have with us today Seth Ingram, movie maker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, matter of fact, what is your title? Is it because now you just not Seth anymore? So is it a producer? Is it director? I mean, what is the whole?
I produced, wrote, and I also play in front of the camera on this one. So I don't know if there's a leading role in a documentary, but that's me on the cover. If you.
And you did at least some of the editing, right?
I did a little bit of everything. When you do an independent film project like this, and on virtually no budget, you end up doing a little bit of everything. So I had my hand in every facet of it.
Well, let me ask you this before we get into the movie itself, because I am fascinated by documentaries. Was the experience did it include more than you thought it would? Did you go in knowing exactly what it would all entail?
Well, I think we started out to make just a small weekend project that we could work on the weekends, and we'd go find a little bit of clues here and there in interviews and kind of piece it together. But it kind of grew when we decided to make reenactments. And we brought in cast and crew and did the whole bit and scouting locations and all that. And so it kind of turned into a mini movie at that point, a mini feature film. And so you combine two elements of going out for months and weeks at a time, trying to find people who know something about the subject, trying to find documentation about it, and then we had a lot of planning that went into these reenactment scenes, and then you just piece it all together and try to put it together in a cohesive way that people can understand it. And we also did a all original soundtrack to accompany it. So it's really kind of I can't think of another documentary that has an all original soundtrack. So I think it's kind of a first of its kind. I'm sure there was one out there, but I can't name one right off.
Well, take us back to why this particular subject and why this movie.
Okay, well, the story is really about, it's entitled Blind Tiger, The Legend of Beltry Smith, but Beltry Smith is really just a vehicle that we use to tell the story of a disappeared town called Bluffton, Alabama, that doesn't exist anymore, that was once the biggest town in Cherokee County, Alabama. So his rise and fall and his career, where it was in this town, and it kind of parallels the town itself. And my grandparents grew up not far from where this town was, and I heard stories about this town, and my grandmother would talk about all these hotels and all these lavish houses and this sort of thing. But when I would go out there was just a little patch of woods on an old dirt road. So that always fascinated me. And then we heard the stories about Beltry Smith out there, and he was kind of a local legend. There's an area called Esom Hill in Georgia that's kind of famous for bootlegging and illegal activities, and I think he was sort of the godfather of that area that gave it its name. And a lot of it is just myth of we found out, in doing our research and what we could find.
So was it a situation where what seemed to be a manageable idea grew the more research you did?
Yeah, and we discovered that we made this documentary about 40 years too late, because most people that had a first-hand account of any of it were just gone. So we're getting second-hand hearsay accounts and stories, which is why it's about the legend, and it's about how the myth became a legend, and as the story gets passed on over time, how it gets blown out of proportion and the facts change. And then we dug up the facts, all the facts that we could surrounding everything, and kind of try to delineate between the two of where the myth and what the man really is and what the myth really is.
If you could, what was the impetus for the whole, I know you talked about the town, but how did it come about? Because what I can say is that a lot of times me and you are just having conversation, and something comes up, and then it just kind of grows. What was it, to have a full featured documentary, how did it come about?
Well, my filmmaking partner, Brian Armstrong, and I we set out to make a local documentary that we had access to. Like I said, we could shoot on the weekends, and that's where we went out and looked at some local history projects that were in range that we could do this with, and this is one I brought to the table, and everybody seemed to think it would be a great idea, so we kind of jumped on. We had several other ideas, and this is just the one that we decided to go with, and I learned a lot along the way about how not to make a documentary and what not to do, and there's a lot of things that it was a very difficult situation, because it took us 2.5 years to complete the project from start to finish. So but I'm glad to see it completed and happy for people to see it, and hopefully they won't throw tomatoes at me.
I'm interested in what drove you to do it, because it was clearly from the beginning not going to be we're going to get rich off this documentary kind of situation. So,
well, I wanted to make, narrative film is what I really like to make. I would like to write and make narrative films, but those are harder to attain because you have to have bigger budgets and all that goes along with it. And I thought this was something I could put a day or two of that facet of it, and then I can go out with a camera and a light kit and shoot interviews all day long. So just combining the two seemed like made it a feasible idea of something we could produce, and I think I'm well pleased with it. So I think that it went well.
When you go through this experience, and I guess this would be the producing end of it, you had to raise money, and I'm guessing now that you had an idea of what it would cost initially.
Yeah.
And was that a little low?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
we didn't really have a budget. We just kind of shotgunned approach that we're going to raise as much money as we can, and then we'll go out and make it. And we quickly ate up our budget, and then it's basically been funded out of our personal bank accounts since then. So we're hoping to recoup some of that money back. And I know that I'll never get rich off of a documentary film, but it's the experience, and it's a resume builder, and it taught me a lot. So for my next project, I think it will bolster my resume, and it will also give me some credibility and to raise money for the next one. People will trust me if I want to do a bigger project since I have a feature project under my belt.
I'm interested in the research aspect of it, Seth, because as a documentary, you have let's say you have an honor with documentaries to be as truthful and honest as you possibly can, because most people think of documentaries as being kind of factual. So the research part of it, how intense was that, and what kind of shape did that take?
Yeah. Oh, I would say that it's all, any documentary, any story, documentary or otherwise, is all told, and it's all how you present it. So you could present this story in a lot of different ways. I mean, and when we started digging up the facts, we went to countless courthouses, online, every historical database you can go to, looking for all sorts of information. And we went to the state archives, and just a lot of reading and a lot of research that a lot of time leads nowhere, and you can't find that one smoking gun that you need to find. And especially, we found out that a lot of the records, the courthouse in Cherokee County has been burnt down 3 times. And a lot of the records that we wanted were in those courthouses, and so some of the records are just non-existent. But we put together all that we could find and combined it with the interviews of family members and historical experts and folklorists, and we let the story kind of just tell itself, because a lot of the local people may have heard the story, but we're introducing a new story to anyone outside of the area. And I think that the film is catered to that audience more so, just giving them a general introduction to the story, and we don't get into a lot of the minutia of the things that the local people might care about more than the general audience would.
So what did happen to Bluffton?
To Bluffton. Bluffton, Alabama. Well, it was an iron ore boom town, and it had around 1900, it had a population of 8,000 people, and they were pitching it as the Pittsburgh of the South. It was going to be the next big town. They were going to build a college there. But after the iron ore mines, they found richer iron ore deposits around the Birmingham area.
Birmingham. Yeah.
And all the town was ran by outsiders. That all New Englanders had came down and were kind of taking advantage of the cheap labor in the area. And because after Reconstruction, the South never knew there was a Great Depression for the most part. These people had been depressed since after the Civil War. So to them, when they finally had some industry come in and they could work a job in the cotton fields and then go into the mines to work another shift, and there was just a hard, brutal time. It's really a sad story about a sad time, kind of a forgotten time in American history.
So it just kind of died away gradually.
Yeah. Well, as soon as the iron ores pulled their plants and moved them, it just kind of went away. And I think probably by late 1830s, it was just a few buildings and a few houses left.
Yeah.
Now it's just completely, there's a church there and a cemetery, and that's about it.
Now, you have changed my perception already, because when we go to Birmingham, we go to the iron whatever museum, the iron ore museum, whatever it is,
the Vulcan.
The Vulcan.
Yeah.
Now I can never look at the Vulcan without seeing that, Bluffton,
Yeah.
This is what became the death of Bluffton is because of, but that's part of history, and that's what I like about documentaries, is that, a lot of times you find out stuff that you didn't intend to know, but it's just interesting facts.
Well, we're coming up on a break. When we come back, we'll get to see the trailer for the documentary and talk some more with Seth Ingram, who was a key player in the making of it. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for these? You drive Buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're talking with Seth Ingram, who has made a documentary called Blind Tiger, The Legend of Beltree Smith. And we talked a great deal about the making of it. We really didn't talk about the key figure much and why he is so notorious. But maybe we should go ahead and see the trailer, and then we can talk about that a little more. So this is the trailer for Blind Tiger.
Hello, stranger, in silence, when the midnight starts the day. Don't be wandering, don't be creeping, be home sleeping is a better way. I wish I knew you like a river, knows the banks its wells to fill. I would ride you like a broke down engine, babe. I can't lose you, and I never will. Hello, stranger, in silence, when midnight starts the day. Don't be wandering, don't be creeping, be home sleeping is a better way. I wish I knew you like a river, knows the banks its wells to fill. I would ride you like a broke down engine, babe. I can't lose.
Brothers and sisters, praise God. I'm so glad to see each and every one of you here this morning. If you can hear the birds sing outside and can see the beauty of these mountains all around us, can I get an amen? Amen. That's right. You have the gift of sight and hearing. There are those who cannot see.
Hello, stranger, can't ease up your mind. Won't you tell me the heart of womankind? Won't you tell me? Won't you tell me? Won't you tell me? Won't you tell me more?
Well, that was that made me want to see it for sure. Made me want to see it for sure.
Well, the trailer you saw was one that really displayed our musical aspect of the film with the soundtrack, and that was a song by the Little Country Giants, Russell Cook and Cameron Federal, who are of the Little Country Giants.
And Russell's assistant professor at Georgia Highlands.
He's an art professor here and a brilliant musician and a good friend of mine. And we all got together at Russell's house one evening when we were going to record a soundtrack, and I invited all my musician friends over and friends of musician friends over, and I told them all the story, all the details about it, and I tasked them all to write a song about it. And we kind of split up over Russell's farmhouse and the little corners, and I would walk around from group to group as they were working on songs and help them with the facts or the lyrics. And you know, we came out, we have a 15-song soundtrack by I think 8 different artists and a couple artists who had never recorded anything before. So And I'm really, really pleased with the soundtrack. The soundtrack tells a story in a way that you can just listen to the soundtrack and you can learn the story pretty much just through it without the aid of the film. So I'm well pleased with the soundtrack.
And you're selling the DVD with the soundtrack,
That's
right? I mean, the soundtrack comes in.
They're all coming in a combo, and they're asking $16 a piece for them. Available in September on our website, which is beltreemovie.com. And so, yeah.
Well, we haven't talked much about Beltry himself. So, where did this? What did he do that made him a legend?
Well, he was famed for being a bootlegger, and people in Alabama may not even realize, or Georgia, that Prohibition came on much earlier in the states before it came along nationally. So a lot of like the Al Capones of the world looked to what people in the South had done to beat the system, and a lot of the Southerners actually moved up north, and they were the ones that were running moonshine and stuff in Chicago during all that time. And a lot of that goes back to Esom Hill, and a lot of people said it was the bootleg capital of Georgia. And it was right on the state line, so people could easily disappear into one state or the other to hide out from the law. And Beltry was kind of the godfather of that movement. He was arrested numerous times. I think we have at least 18 arrest records of him, everything from murder to gambling, to assault, all different types of charges, and bootlegging, obviously. He was selling illegal spirits. But then he also had a legitimate side to him where he ran a lot of big businesses, and he had well-to-do connections, especially here in Rome. And he would come to Rome, he'd be one person. He would help people. He was friends with the Harbin doctors, and we had heard rumors that he was actually friends with Martha Berry, but we were never able to substantiate some of those. But at the same time, when he'd go back home, he was just kind of a renegade outlaw that kind of ruled with an iron fist. And he may have even had possibly extorted the people. That may be one of the reasons why Bluffton decided the people decided to pull uproot and leave. It may have been because of some of his dealings. Again, we can't prove any of this. It's just hearsay.
So where does the term Beltry come in?
Beltry, oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. So there was a tree on the state line, Georgia, Alabama, on his property, and there was a trail going down to it, and people could walk up to the tree, and there was a sign that said, "Place your money here and wait for your order. Go to the bench and wait for the bell to ring." So people would come to this big hotel in Bluffton, and they would walk out to the tree, and they'd buy their whiskey. And that's what's called a blind tiger operation, where you can't rat out the person that sold it to you, and vice versa. So the nickname, that's where he was given the nickname, was Beltry. And there was an article published. We couldn't access it, but it's in the old New York World while it was written, while this was going on. And so he's kind of a legend in his own time. And because when they wrote that article, people came from all over the place just as the novelty of going to see the Beltry or buying whiskey from Beltry. And then at the time of his death, when he was killed in 1908, his obituary ran in almost every major newspaper in the country. And because it was a fascinating story, I think that the journalists of the time just wanted to catch on to that. And the way he was killed, too, was kind of a very interesting, conspiracy-minded story, even. So his death is, a lot of people think that the governor may have even been involved in his death. And that's just hearsay again, but
it's part of the legend.
It's part of the legend.
So it's a violent story.
It's a very violent, a very sad story. In a depressed area that had a little bit of hope, and it was extinguished, and it went back to hard times. So it's a very, very sad story. And I think if you drive through the area where Bluffton was, you kind of sense it. You can feel it. You can just feel the depression as you drive through there. And if you think about this town that just came out of nowhere and is gone forever, and it'll never come back. And Bluffton's still on the map on your GPS might show up, but there's nothing there other than a church. So
now you know.
Yeah.
You got to make the drive.
Got to make the drive.
You got to make the drive.
Now, in addition to buying it, which with the music, also sounds like it's a great deal. But you will be showing the movie at the Rome Film Festival.
We are we're airing September the 5th or 6th, whichever the Saturday is, at 5 p.m. at the DeSoto Theater in Rome, Georgia. So we are in the Rome International Film Festival, and we're excited about that, and we're hoping to have a large turnout there to see it. And we're going to have some of the musicians play in our a little after party afterwards, so you can get to see some of the musicians live. And so we're hoping we'll have a good crowd for that.
Let's see. That would be I think that would be the 6th.
The 6th, September. That sounds right.
It's a Saturday. And what time?
5 p.m. at the DeSoto Theater.
And party to follow.
Party to follow. Stay tuned.
So, opportunity to see it in public and opportunity to buy it. What's the website again?
BeltreeMovie.com, and that'll be a good opportunity if people want to meet and greet some of the Brian or myself to talk about it. That's a good opportunity to actually we'll have to spend some time with the people and talk about it.
So they can get signed copies at that time.
I don't think that increases the value. Sure.
Well, we're coming up on our next break. When we come back, we'll give you those details again, so please stay with us.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking with Seth Ingram, who is one of the makers of the new documentary, Blind Tiger, The Legend of Beltry Smith, which you can see at RIF on the 6th of September, coming up really soon, Saturday, 5 o'clock, DeSoto Theater, with a party to follow. You get to hear some of the music made especially for the film, and you can buy a copy of the DVD with the music CD altogether for $16?
$16.
At
BeltreeMovie.com.
BeltreeMovie.com. So I can't wait to see it, and you're going to have one to sell us today, I'm imagining.
Well,
right?
sure.
Okay. So we'll buy one. Go see it at RIF. Thank you for being with us. We will see you next time on Community Watch.